Hello, everybody, and welcome to the History of the English Language, Etymology 101. So today we're going to have a quick look at what literacy in English is going to look like at KHS, and it'll look like this. Over the next 2 years, you're going to study etymology, morphology, and phonology, all of which are terms that you're going to get used to and you're going to learn how to apply in your reading, writing, grammar, and spelling. So for the next 2 years, these are going to be some focus areas in terms of literacy. So let's get started. So today we're going to start with the question, what is etymology? Etymology is the study of where a word came from and involves looking at the history of a word. So etymon is Greek for the meaning of a word according to its origin, and logy is Greek for to study. So looking at the history of where the English language came from, we can start around the 400s in the United Kingdom itself, or Great Britain. So at this time, there were a bunch of clans that lived in Great Britain, and one language that was spoken, which is still spoken today, was Gaelic. We still have some words from Gaelic, like bog, clan, clock, crag, gob, pet, trousers, and whiskey. All right, all of which sound very Scottish when you listen to them, and all of which we can recognise today, and we know what they mean. Now, from the 400s to the 800s, we had a group of people from Western Europe, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, and this is them there. They moved over to Great Britain, and with them they brought their Germanic languages. So by the 600s, this meant that Old English had emerged as a new language. So words like world, meaning world, eelt, meaning old, oft, meaning often, and offrian, to offer, are all words that we can vaguely recognise today and were the start of what we know now as the English language. At this time, we had stories like King Arthur being written as well. So let's have a very quick listen to what Old English sounded like and see if you can recognise any of the words here at all.
What we gardaina in yer dagum, thaid caningas rum ye frunnen, who adalingas ellen fremedon, oft chill shaving shalana threatum, monium maigdum, maer settle oft there, that him eich.
Okay, now I don't know if you would have recognised any of those words. That was from a very famous text called Beowulf, and there's not much recognisable about English today. But let's see if we can trace the language and see if we start to understand it as we get closer to our own time. So around 990, 1050s, the Vikings came down from Scandinavia, places like Norway and Sweden, and they moved down to Great Britain, bringing their Scandinavian or Norse language with them. So with them, they brought words like berserk, and if anyone ever has heard of a berserker, it's a warrior who used to go nuts when they went to battle. Words like gif from geffa, egg, anger, awe, which we can turn into awesome and awful, happy, and skin. All of these words came from the Vikings, and there are heaps more. So already we're starting to see how English is becoming a collection of different languages. Oh, he also brought Thor with them too, who is awesome. All right, in 1066 we have William the Conqueror, who came over from France, looking very excited to be coming from France. He came from a place called Normandy, and he led the Normans. They invaded Britain, and with them they brought Latin, which came from the Romans, and French. So up until 1300, people continued to speak Old English, especially people who'd lived in Britain for a long time. But when the French came over, or when the Normans came over, all legal and religious documents started to be written in French and Latin. Okay, so that meant that those languages became part of English as well. Now in 1380, a very famous author, well famous now, named Geoffrey Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales. This is what they look like, and this is where Middle English, or around the time that Middle English started. So let's have a quick listen to what Middle English sounds like, and let's see if you recognise any of the words.
Here beginneth the book of the Tales of Canterbury. When that April, with his surest sorter, the drucht of March hath persed to the rote, and bathed every vine in switch liqueur, of which vertue engendered is the flour.
All right, so that was from Geoffrey Chaucer's work, and we're starting to see words like flower, March, April, words that make sense to us in modern times. So this is where English is starting to shift and become recognisable. In the 1480s, William Caxton brought the printing press to England, which meant that the written word could get out to a whole bunch of people who were able to read, but it also meant that they had to come up with a uniform way to represent English on paper, which meant they had to start discussing ways that English should be spoken and how that speech would be written on bits of paper. So they had to come up with a bit of a uniform way to do that, or a similar way. In the 1500s to 1650s, we had the King James's Bible and we had Shakespeare. So the Bible became readily available to many people who were able to read, and Shakespeare, who we can recognise today, sort of heralded the modern age of English. So what we can now recognise as English began around this time, and it's called modern English. All right, around that time, or just before that time, England started to colonise the world. It meant that they were taking over lots of different places, and lots of those different places had lots of different languages. So England, or the English, took different parts of those languages. So words like kangaroo actually came from words like gungaroo. We've got chocolate, banana, pajamas, all words that came from different parts of the world, like the Aztecs, places in West Africa and India. So far by the 1700s, we're seeing that English is made up of the Germanic languages like Anglo-Saxon, Old English, Norse, Latin, French, Greek, and New Worldly words. So we can see that English is this big hodgepodge of different languages, which meant that by the 1700s, people were starting to think about how they could really standardize or make the language be able to be understood by everybody. So they started to come up with some common rules that would govern the spelling of many words. Then in the 1750s to the 1920s, we had things like dictionaries starting to come out so that people could understand what those words meant. And in dictionaries, quite often you'll see where the origin of that word came from as well, so that you can trace its origins back. We also had American English start to diverge from British English, so different countries creating their own ways of using English. Okay, now I want you to take a quick break and I want you to work on your timeline and see what you can come up with in terms of the different things that were occurring in English at different times to create the language we know now. All right, back into it. So this is our last section. Why is etymology important? It's important because now we can trace words back to mainly three languages, or three main sections of our language. We've got Anglo-Saxon, Latin, and Greek. And let's look at why that's important. So if I take The Greatest Showman, it's a circus, right? In English, we might study this text. Now, what we know of as a modern circus actually came from Rome. So a circus, if we look here, was when horses and carts would run around and around and around and around like a race. Okay, now when I think about going round and round and round in a circle, then I can make connections between the circle I see in Rome and this circle here, which I might see or use in maths and science. We might also see words like circumference. The idea of a circle as being round and the perimeter of a circle as a circumference can link up with other ideas that I might see in things like geography, where we can circumnavigate or navigate the circumference of the world. So that means that we're going around the world. So that means that we can make connections between different subjects. So I might study circus in drama or English, where I have an idea of a circus as being set up in a big round tent. Then I've got ancient history, where I might be looking at the Romans and their circus. Then I've got the idea of a circle, which I do in maths and science. And then I've got circumnavigation, which I might do in history and geography. So etymology allows us to make connections between all of these different terms, all of these different words, and the subjects that they apply to. I can also do things that help me with spelling when it comes to etymology. So words that start with a ch or have a ch, like church, champ, and child, come from Anglo-Saxon and Germanic words. As soon as I hear that CH as a sh, I know I'm looking at a French word like chef, champagne, or chandelier. So I'm looking at different languages, and most of you will study French at some point. Then when I look at CH as a k sound, I know I've got words from the Greek language like orchid, chemist, character, all of which are words you'll come across in science or drama or other subjects at school. So etymology helps us to make those connections too with spelling and language. So a wrap up, why is etymology important? Etymology can help you understand your native language better. It can also help you understand English if it's not your native language, because you can trace it back to all sorts of different languages and work out where it came from. The study of etymology can teach you about common root words in several different languages. So it helps you make connection between lots of different words that may have similar meanings, as we saw with the circle example. It means you may be able to recognise words in other languages without being told exactly what they mean, and it helps us to make connections when we're spelling words and when we read words across different subjects. All right, it's up to you now to finish off your activity sheets and see if you can do some learning with etymology for yourselves. All right, good luck.